In this second video about whistle basics, I'm going to talk about how I hold the whistle, what I think the advantages are of holding it the way I'm doing it, and then you can decide for yourself whether that's valuable to you. Some of this has come about by trial and error, and I don't hold it today the way that I started. When I first picked up a whistle, it was my tendency to bite on it. I played clarinet when I was growing up, and I got used to biting on the top of the mouthpiece. Had a little rubber pad there, and so the early whistles that I was playing have the paint rubbed off the Clarks on the top, and the beaks of the generations were all torn up. I don't do that anymore because I want the flexibility to be able to change the oral chamber in ways that I think enhance the sound, and we'll talk about why I think that's important. But let's go down to the basics first. I'm going to, for this video, I'm going to put my left hand on top. Most people play with their left hand on top, but not everybody does. If you play with your right hand on top, and then you switch to a flute, you're going to be needing a flute that goes off to the left, and if you want keys, the keys have to be left-handed. So that was one reason that a lot of people started with the whistle if they were going to move to the flute. Now, with the pipes, I don't think it matters as much, and I certainly know a lot of pipers who play with their right hands on top, but I'm just going to illustrate with the left hand on top. So before we go any farther, I want to talk about where I'm putting my thumbs, because the support of the instrument comes from three places. From holding it in your mouth, and I'm going to hold it around my closed lips, but I'm not going to bite on it. It's going to be ahead of my teeth. And then where you place your thumbs, and then at times how you support the base of the instrument, either with your fifth finger down on the bottom of the tube, or for some of the high notes you may drop your bottom finger on the bottom hole like this. That usually is okay. It's not always okay. So I'm going to turn my hand around so you can see where my thumbs are. I locate them not in the center. I put the left hand a little to the left and the right hand a little to the right, so that I'm kind of stabilizing it left to right. The left thumb ends up just a little bit below my top finger. The right thumb for me is between the fourth and fifth holes on the right hand. The pads of my fingers, I'll show you. I'm going to squeeze much harder than I would normally play, but then you can see the impression of the holes on my fingers. I'm not playing with the tips, I'm not playing just here, I'm playing with the flats. So my fingers are actually a little over the body of the instrument on either side. My fingers are a little bit curved, mostly straight, and then I try to keep this bottom baby finger available so that when I'm playing upper notes, this finger is down. The hardest thing to do is to keep everybody happy when you're playing an open hold note. Having the finger down helps for that. So I'll just play a scale and show you how this support works for me. So that is the basics of how I hold the instrument. When I'm playing fast, if I don't keep these fingers a little to the side, as I start to move, I will, I'm left-handed, and I will push the instrument over to the right. And I've actually had it go off to the side of my mouth, and I don't like that. I like to play out the center. You'll see people play like this, and I do have one instrument I do play like that, but I play it like that because that instrument requires me to shade the window, or the tone won't be clear. In other cases, though, I like to play it pretty much here, and I try not to play it like Benny Goodman, straight out like this, maybe 30 degrees out, so I can see my own hands, but they're not right in front of my face. The position on my lip, when I play, I have a small mouth, so my lips are closed around it, but I keep it ahead of my teeth here, because when I find that I end up mentally making some sounds without vocalizing that augment the notes. Let me explain what that means. This comes from people who have studied the recorder. When we play this bottom note, that's all the fingers down, and I blow. If I just blow, it's kind of warbly and not really very focused. If I open my throat and my mouth and think about a low note, I get a much clearer sound. I'm not trying to put vibrato in. As Mary Bergen said, when you get to be a little older, you get all the tremolo you want just from age. But it's a lot easier for me to make that note clear if I think about singing the note in my head and also formulating that O sound. Now, as I go up, by the time I get up toward the top notes of the first octave, I'm thinking A. So when I'm here, I'm thinking more of an A sound in my head. And as I go up, you'll see there'll be little changes in my jaw. I'll just do that. You can see little things going on there. That's what happens as I mentally think about it. Now, as I go up higher, I think about E. As I think about E, it changes the oral chamber. We have some resonant ability in our oral cavities that affect this complex standing wave, a vibration that's going up and down this open tube. Of course, we're connected to it, so there is an effect by how we do this and also how we support. I am trying to support it with good abdominal control. I take a breath in, my belly comes out, I'm not vain about it, and then as I breathe out, the belly comes back in. So watch my oral cavity as I go up the scale. So E is what I do. This is a $30 whistle. I didn't want to do this demonstration with an expensive instrument. This is a Clare whistle. I'll be doing each one of these demonstrations with different whistles because I have an embarrassing number of them. This is a Clare whistle that has been modified by the Thornton whistle company, and it is a very there have been some corrections to the pitch and so forth. Tommy Martin did the changes to it, and it's quite a nice instrument. The other person who does Jerry Freeman, of course, here in the U.S. does a lot of alterations. In Ireland, Killian O'Brien is the other person who does a nice job on tuning up and getting the more color out of the inexpensive store-bought instruments. I do like them. In my next video, I'll use the Killian O'Brien whistle. Maybe I'll keep this one around so you can hear the contrast. But anyway, so those are the basic things. The grip, remember, getting the thumbs a little to the side makes all the difference. As you go up the scale, think about bringing the baby finger down. Now, I have a bad habit of resting this bottom finger just off the side of the bottom hole when I'm playing rapidly. And sometimes it strays on here when I'm playing the top notes. Most of the time that makes no difference. So on this instrument, no difference. But I have instruments that will not play the top note if I cover that bottom note. Different instruments behave differently depending on how the hole structure is. Let me show you an example of that. First I'll say that we're playing, this is a D instrument, we're playing a D major scale. The other scale we play in a lot is G, and you need a C natural for that. So the C is either half holing this first hole or cross fingering. So this cross fingering works very nicely for a C natural on this instrument. This is a Weltmeister whistle made in the former East Germany, and it is the French system of holes. Notice that the top hole on this is as big as the holes next to it, whereas on this one it's a little bit smaller. When you see an instrument that has a top hole that's big like that, the only fingering that works for the C natural is 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. Works beautifully, but if you try to do it sharp. So most instruments that you pick up today have what is called the English system fingering, with the top hole being smaller than the one next to it. But occasionally you'll run across one of these, and I wouldn't ignore it because they're great instruments. I mean, this thing roars, but you do have to be a little bit careful about cross fingerings. I know I'm getting ahead of myself talking about those things. I'll further mention that for any key of instrument, it's common in playing the whistle to just call it by the D fingering. So if I'm playing an instrument that has B flat as its bottom note, I'll still look at, if I'm looking at notes, I read music, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but whether you do or you don't, I still call this the D fingering, even if the whistle's this long. It's just easier. It's not like the recorder where you have to learn different names for the same fingering depending on how big an instrument you're playing. So that's, we just say that this is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. So that's enough about that. Mostly wanted to go over the grip, and then that idea of sounding the note mentally, singing the note mentally, and thinking about that O opening at the bottom notes and then moving up toward the A and then the E at the top notes. Let me say a little bit about support of the instrument. It's very like singing to play a whistle. Just you're not belting it out quite as much, but you do want to think about putting color into the tone. So you want to put as much into it as you can, short of breaking the note. So not a real anemic breath stream, but also not, because you get that multi-tonal nothing sound. You want it just in between. You need to find the right breath pressure for each note. That's about the right breath pressure for that note. As I go up the scale, I can blow harder. I don't necessarily want to blow harder, because if I blow too hard, I'll blow sharp. The bottom note, you really need, first of all, that openness, and also not blowing too hard, because it's pretty easy to overblow. And so different breath pressures for different notes. Now when you get up to the second octave, especially with a cylindrical bodied instrument, and most whistles are cylindrical bodied, you want to, as you get toward the higher notes, they do tend to go flat. And if you have one that's a bigger diameter, that's a bigger problem. So this one is not, this is medium diameter, but if I'm not careful, if I don't support the upper note, it'll go flat. So here's an example. Obviously not hitting the octave there. You have to really get that E and get that air support in that second octave to get it. Same with the top note. And I'm really changing my whole respiratory system to accommodate that. Just like a singer would do. It's more like you have a head voice in the top notes and you have your chest voice in the bottom notes, just like a singer would have. If you think of that, that will really help in getting more color and tone out of the notes. So that's enough for this video. I'll be back in a minute with another one.